Hey, what is up guys? David Zhao here, and today I've got the Sony 16-35 f2.8 G Master lens with me. I've had this lens for about 2 weeks now, and I kept thinking to myself, who needs this focal length, and should you buy this lens? Well, let's find out. As usual, if you're interested in this lens, any of the gear I talk about, or the equipment used to film this video, links are in the description down below. Alright, let's do a quick overview of this lens. Released in May of 2017 and retails for $2,198, the 16-35 f2.8 G Master was the widest, fastest native lens available for the Sony full-frame system until the 12-24 f2.8 G Master was announced just a week ago. Is that a fly in here? As usual with the Sony G Master lenses, the focus of Sony's development went towards sharpness, bokeh quality, and physical construction. And, of course, as usual, Sony delivered in all aspects. We are talking tack sharp centers with sharp corners even while wide open, creamy bokeh rendition, fast and silent native autofocus, and rock solid build quality with your usual suspects like your focus hold button, autofocus manual focus switch, a smooth linear focus ring, and weather sealing gaskets. While it does sport a gorgeous lens element, all that glass adds up. This lens weighs in at 680 grams or 1.5 pounds. That's not a light lens, and we'll get back to that point a little later. Now, I could sit here and talk specs with you all day long. On paper, this lens is phenomenal, and in the lab, it's gonna give you insane results after insane results. But I kept thinking to myself, why do you need a 16-35 millimeter? Who is this lens for? And when I gave it more thought, I really broke it out to 3 primary groups that might be interested in buying this lens and why. Landscape photographers. I think it goes without saying that the primary appeal of a wide focal length lens with extremely high resolving power and a fast aperture like f2.8 is a perfect lens for landscape photography. When you pair a lens like this with a camera like the A7R4, you can capture wide vistas with killer sharpness, great color rendition, all while having options like opening up your aperture if you start losing the light without compromising your image quality. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty happy with this photo that I got just a few nights ago with this lens shot at f2.8. Let me know what you guys think of this shot. I'd love to hear in the comment section down below. Give me some feedback. Because I'm not a landscape photographer, but I'd like to be. Anyways, speaking of losing light, you know what place notoriously has issues with not enough light? Anywhere indoors. I swear it doesn't matter how bright an interior is lit, an f4 lens feels like the whole place is just lit with candles. Which is why, for people who do real estate photography and videography, having the option to open up to f2.8 is incredibly useful. Until the Sony 12-24 f2.8 G Master was announced, this was the widest focal length lens that you could get for the Sony system if you wanted to keep autofocus capabilities, have a wide aperture, and wanted super sharp results. While there were non-Sony options like the incredible Laowa 12mm f2.8 for full frame and its little brother, the Laowa 9mm f2.8 for APS-C, I'd wager to say the 16-35 G Master beats both of them in sharpness and in versatility. If you're serious about doing real estate work, especially if you're working with small or medium-sized houses and rooms, having the field of view of a 16mm lens is crucial for getting those epic sweeping shots. You know who else would love this lens? Event photographers and videographers. If you're shooting events like weddings, you already know how important wide aperture zoom lenses are to your work. Like the 70-200 f2.8 is clutch when it comes to getting those close-up shots, and how the 24-70 f2.8 is basically your go-to lens all day long. But you're probably thinking, well, if I have a 24-70 or plan on getting one, wouldn't they kind of be slightly redundant since the focal lengths overlap? Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, but it still doesn't change the fact that having access to that 16-24mm range is extremely useful. Think about those wide establishing shots that you can get with that. On top of that, you've got good low light capability with the f2.8 aperture, and you can use your autofocus, which speeds up your workflow. Finally, we've got one last group who might be interested in this lens. Vloggers. A few years back, I highly recommended the Zeiss 16-35 f4 stabilized lens as one of the best lenses for vlogging on Sony full-frame systems. While that lens is cheaper, coming in at $1,400, and it has optical steady shot, it only opened up to f4. Which, don't get me wrong, you could do a lot worse, but like I said before, f4 indoors is always such a struggle. You're almost always cranking the ISO, and that's no fun. With f2.8, not only are you able to get more light, you're also able to work with a shallower depth of field. I've talked about it a few times on this channel before, but focal lengths like 24mm is unfortunately still just a little too tight in terms of framing. It feels kind of claustrophobic. So having the ability to vlog at a 16mm focal length is so much better. But of course, the elephant in the room I need to address is the elephant weight of this lens. It's 1.5 pounds, which isn't like the heaviest lens, but it's heavy enough to be pretty uncomfortable to vlog with for a prolonged period of time. But to update that vlogging lens recommendation for 2020, I recommend the 16-35 f4 if you shoot a lot outdoors and want to save some weight so that you're not killing your forearms, your shoulders, and your biceps all day long. But I'd recommend the 16-35 f2.8 if you shoot a lot indoors in the evenings or just want the sharpest image possible. Or just get the Sony 20mm f1.8G lens. Yeah, that's probably the one I'd recommend getting for vlogging today. Again, for any of the products I talked about today, links will be in the description down below. So here are my closing thoughts. This lens is incredible. My desire to collect every G Master lens in existence is tingling like always. But for me, personally, I don't do landscapes, real estate, or even event coverage that consistently anymore. So it's kind of hard to make the business case to shell out all that cash for it. Don't get me wrong, the specs and performance is there, but it's just not for what I do. But if you are one of the people I mentioned before, you're making income from one of those fields of photography, whether that's landscape, real estate, event, and you want to continue to invest in your equipment, I definitely think this is a lens that'll do you proud, produce stunning results, and hold its value in the long run. One side note though, if you're deciding between the 16-35 G Master and the 12-24 G Master, you're really gonna wanna ask yourself if that extra 4mm is important to the type of images that you're trying to capture. While it's tempting to complete a set of 12-24, 24-70, and the 70-200, like the OCD in me wants to, the extra 4mm is going to cost you $3,000. Alright, that's it for this one, my friends. You know the drill. Don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and get notified of when new videos are released. Let me know in the comment section down below on what you think of this lens. Who do you think this lens is the best fit for? Because I'm not gonna lie, 16-35mm is a strange focal length to me personally, so I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that. Alright, as always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!